Welcome back to another episode of Takedown Breakdown. I'm Kevin Brumley.
And I'm James Nutter. Kevin, you got the giggles there, bud. What's wrong?
So today
Giggling.
we are doing the
He's got the
top 10,
giggles.
the top 10 heavyweights of all time. So we each made our own list, and then we kind of
Wait,
tried
you said
to
heavyweight?
heavyweight.
I wrote down all flyweights. This is awkward.
About that. So we tried to, we did our own list. We tried to come up with a compromised version. Of course, there's some stuff where I have people higher, you have people higher. My list is right, your list is wrong. So it's just that kind of general format. So let's go ahead and start off number 10. Do you want to do your number 10? I'll do my number 10. And then from there on out, we pretty much agreed on most things.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So who did you have at number 10?
I had Josh Barnett.
Oh, wow. I had JDS.
Okay. So
we should probably preface this with this was very difficult.
It was extremely difficult. Just the whole idea of I feel like the heavyweight division at its prime was like that Pride early UFC stages, and everybody was fighting everybody. So I feel like it's hard to do it's stupid to do MMA math, but I feel like
it never adds up.
There was a lot of oh, this guy split with this guy, or this guy lost 3 times to this guy but beat this guy twice, and that guy lost. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things where you're just like, oh my goodness,
It's also one of those things where where it's the most relevant weight division when you're talking about Pride.
Sure.
You have to go back to Pride. You have to. You could probably scoot around all the other weight classes in Pride,
sure.
just because. But it also it probably has the longest lineage, right? As far as weight classes go, like that and light heavyweight.
Sure, yeah. Pride was just solely heavyweight and 205ers.
Yep.
Sometimes the 205ers would still fight heavyweight.
Yeah.
Really
In different eras, but always maintain that a guy that size is always one punch away from winning. So it's such a weird dynamic.
Sure. So for our compromise list, I had Josh Barnett and you had DC. Well, you had DC higher, but for our compromise list, we have DC at 10 for you, Barnett at 10 for me. So with that being said, if someone's just watching this, they're probably thinking, well, DC beat Josh Barnett, therefore DC's better than Josh Barnett.
That's what I said.
So my problem is Josh Barnett has beaten Dan Severn, Randy Couture, Mark Hunt, Big Nog, Pedro Hizzo, Frank Mir, and Andre Arlovski. Now, he's also lost to Rizzo, lost to Nog, DC beat him, and Crow Cop beat him 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
My only problem is DC is absolutely amazing, but the bulk of his career, he's a better light heavyweight than a heavyweight, just because he chose to do a bulk of his career at light heavyweight. If he fought the majority of his career, I'm sure he would be, possibly even won. I think he definitely has that skill set. It's just he didn't fight enough. It's basically just a lack of use at that division. Why I didn't put him higher.
Yeah, I just think, but to play devil's advocate, I think the biggest thing is we just talked about a division that has a dynamic of there being one punch knockouts all the time, sure, and how everyone's lost everyone. DC's never lost. He's never lost. He fought it gassed up, Bigfoot Silva, fought Josh Barnett. He beat Stipe, recently. Came back and did that. I don't know. I just feel like that merits a reward for definitely being in the top 10 and never losing.
Sure, and I think part of the thing is Josh Barnett was one of the first guys to do what he did. He made the game different. I feel like he's one of the few guys.
Youngest heavyweight champion.
Sure, and he's one of the first guys to incorporate wrestling with jiu-jitsu and that catch wrestling style where, there was either wrestlers like a Mark Coleman where he's going to ground and pound you, or there was guys who were just strictly jiu-jitsu. Well, he's the first guy he'll get you down and he'll tap you. I mean, he has, let's see, Josh Barnett is 35-8 for his career. He has 8 knockouts, 21 submissions.
Yeah, it was hard to
finish
him
his
on the
fights.
list. Honestly, I could probably have put him on the list. And I don't even think, actually, to be honest with you, I don't even think DC's the arguable point on my list to put him in. I could see myself subbing out other people instead of DC. So it's not more so for me a DC versus Barnett thing. It just came down to that for our list and our differences.
Sure. So we go to our number 9, which I think we both pretty much agreed on. Our number 9 is Crow Cop. All right.
Yeah.
How would you break down Crow Cop's career?
Disappointing on the second half, but that happens. But like, I just feel like maybe if he had won the belt, if he had won the belt in the UFC, like we're talking top 5 for sure. Like
Sure.
without a doubt, actually, probably top 3, right? Like,
Yeah.
he went to war with Fedor, didn't get stopped in the like Fedor's prime.
Yeah.
A lot of it's pride, so it's just hard to judge. And then seeing how he kind of reinvented himself later in his career. Obviously, he's retired now because of that stroke. But like how he went to like clinch game, like he could still throw kicks, but he was like doing way more clinch work. I just thought that was really cool, and he stayed relevant. He had a lot of ups and downs, like all these heavyweights have. But it's kind of weird seeing him at 9. Kind of bums me out because I feel like maybe there's an argument for him to be higher. But just the way I feel when felt when I made this list. Was that there was more to be done to cement him higher, specifically winning its belt in the UFC.
I mean, I would say as a MMA guy, one of the easiest, Crow Cop's one of the best knockout artists of all time. Of any weight division, you're looking at he's 38-11, 29 of those victories are knockout. That's a pretty impressive stat line right there.
It's a bad man. It's a bad man.
His big wins: Sakuraba, Josh Barnett 3 times, Mark Coleman, and Vanderlei Silva. But the thing that held me back is he lost to Nog, he lost to Fedor, and like those were all 3 of them were in their prime at that point. So that's why I can't put him higher over those guys. You're also looking at he lost to Kevin Randleman, Mark Hunt, which I think that's a tough one to lose to Mark Hunt, basically he beat him in a striking match because those two really probably aren't hitting the ground too often.
Yeah, he hit Mark Hunt with a vicious head kick in that fight.
He also lost to JDS and Frank Mir. So, like, I feel like when he was going against the big guys, the guys that'd be in the top 20, top 25 of all time, I think on the lower half of that list, he was beating those guys, but on the higher half of that list, some of those guys were getting the better of him. I think his best victories are, 3-0 against Josh Barnett. Silva's a 205er, Sakuraba, the Gracie killer, I don't know. Mark Coleman, but Mark Coleman was kind of one-dimensional, an early guy. As soon as he kind of started fighting the big guys, it was difficult for him. So that's why I can't put Crow Cop higher.
Yeah, also I think his loss to Fedor was actually a plus. Like
okay.
You know what I mean? Like even though he lost, neither of them lost that fight. I mean, like whenever you talk about MMA, up until a certain point, probably till like recently, that would be the fight you would show people would be Crow Cop versus Fedor, right? So like for me, that was a defining fight. That he was a lot more well-rounded than we thought. He lost, but I don't know. It's just one of those fights. It's like, I mean, it's not even like this, but I guess you could say like Conor Diaz too. Like neither of those guys really lost that fight.
Sure, it's one of those things where if you look at the record, the course has to go down a win for one person, a loss for the other, but it's a good fight.
Yep. So I think 9's a solid spot for Crow Cop.
At number 8, we have Alistair Overeem, because that's not Overeem, because when Overeem was at 205, Overeem was at heavyweight. So the bulk of his career took place as Alistair Overeem. Yes. I think we both pretty much agreed on this. We both had him one spot ahead of Crow Cop on our list, and I think we both had Overeem at 7 or 8 on our actual list.
8, yeah, we both had him at 8. Yep.
So it's pretty much spot on. We almost completely agree on that one. So for Alistair Overeem, he has 2 victories over Vitor, 2 victories over Mark Hunt, 2 victories over Fabricio Verdum, which is a pretty big one for me.
Yeah, that's huge.
He beat Brock, he beat Mir, he beat JDS, he beat Orlovsky, which those are wow, those are really big ones. He beat a lot of who's who, but he also lost to Liddell at 205. Shogun. He lost to Nog twice. He did lose to Fabricio. He beat Bigfoot, or he lost to Bigfoot, lost to Stipe, lost to Francis. Now, a lot of those are later career, but like I felt like when he kind of got into the UFC and there was, even in those early stages when there was just sort of drug testing, it was kind of like more like, hush hush, don't be obvious. He definitely he lost to Ben Rothwell. I don't know.
He's probably the best striker of all time. Possibly ever, in any division.
People like him and Anthony Johnson drive me crazy. Like I cannot stand front runners. So you're okay with being the hammer, but soon as they're the nail for a second, they fold.
Yeah.
So like that's always been my biggest problem is when he kind of throws his fury and flurry and finishes somebody, he looks great. But as soon as someone kind of takes it and is like, all right, now the fight's on, he's just like, maybe I'll just wilt. That's my only problem with the Overeem.
Yeah, I
Still a
think he
fun
just
fighter.
has a bunch of brain damage too.
Sure.
So I think 8's a solid spot for him.
That Francis knockout was probably the most vicious knockout I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad.
Dude, it was bad.
Honestly, Masvidal's recent knockout has to be up there.
Oh, sure. That was a good one.
And all the other ones have been happening. Josh Emmett and Josh Emmett. Yeah, Josh Emmett knocking Michael Johnson, and then Gaethje over Barboza. Like, we've had 3 of the most historic knockouts, like knocked dead, so bad.
Oh yeah, we've been seeing dudes get flatlined.
Yeah. Back to the list.
At number 7, we have Randy Couture.
Yep, this is where I had DC and you had Josh Barnett. We settled to drop them down for the 3-time heavyweight champion Randy Couture. For me, this was a no-brainer. Honestly, wanted to put him higher. I had him at 5th on my list originally, and you had him at number 10 because you don't respect Captain America, which is disrespectful. You're lucky I do this fucking podcast with you after disrespecting Joe Rogan's hero. No, but honestly, Couture, I think the UFC's kind of like nullified him because of like all the issues they had. Like, we don't, like, when we talk about the GOATs, we don't talk about Randy Couture. Randy Couture is 100% in the conversation of the greatest of all time. 100%.
Oh yeah,
100%.
But his name doesn't even get whispered.
No, like, it's not even like slightly mentioned. Like Anderson Silva's still mentioned, even though like he had a little skid at the end of his career here and
Sure,
all this shit. But people like, they don't even. There's no peep of him. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot because, I mean, you're talking about a guy that won a weight belt in 2 divisions before that was ever even a thing, really.
sure.
Him and BJ Penn. I mean, you have to put him on the same level as BJ Penn, and he didn't have the massive skid that BJ's had. So where does that put Randy Couture? I think Randy Couture is like top 5 for sure, GOATs. So
100%. He's a dude who stepped in and always fought the best. Like, my biggest problem with boxing is, Floyd Mayweather's 50-0, but like 30 of those guys, who are they?
Yeah, if not, maybe
Randy Couture
40.
stepped in and is fighting like Pedro Hizzo, one of his first fights.
Tim
You
Sylvia.
know what I mean? Like, this dude is just. And
He
the
fought
fact that when he
Brock
came back
Lesnar.
from his retirement and beat Tim Sylvia, which I think was like a relief for America because everybody and their parents hate Tim Sylvia.
Yeah.
So like that was like such a huge moment of like this old man coming back and winning the heavyweight title. Awesome.
And it was 5 rounds of just a kind of ground and pound, but really just dominant wrestling and position holding, which isn't really that exciting to people. But do you remember how on fire that place was? Do you remember?
Yeah.
People were like standing ovation for Randy Couture.
Oh, 100%.
See, it's like 45 in here just kicking the shit out of this giant. It was awesome. Randy is 100% a legend. I think him settling on, like, I don't even feel great about him being number 7. But again, ask me tomorrow, he might be in the top 5. I don't know. It's hard to pick.
Couture was a tough one just because. So he's one of those people that did a little bit 205, did a little bit of heavyweight. So I have for his notable wins in his career, like he's 19-11, and again, that's top-notch competition.
Yeah.
But you're looking at beat Vitor twice, beat Kevin Randleman, beat Hizzo twice, and beat Sylvia. But he lost to Josh Barnett, he lost to Vitor, he lost to Brock, he lost to Nog. So like, I can't put him above Nog. Machida, yeah, that was a 205 though. So
yeah,
some of those other ones were too, but at least that was prime Couture.
Yeah, but also they have to give him credit for, 1, being a smaller man at heavyweight, and 2, most of his fights coming past the age of 35.
Yeah, dude's an absolute monster.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, it's weird because right now we'll agree with him being number 7, but if we did a greatest of all time list right now, I mean, he's top 5. It's weird. He's done more for his overall legacy than his heavyweight legacy.
Sure, I agree. Yeah,
kind of like DC.
Yeah, he's like a Mount Rushmore guy. Like one of those dudes is OG.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so at number 6, I think we were pretty close on this, agreeing. Big Nog.
We were dead on there.
Dead on. Okay, I wasn't sure if I had him at 5 or 6.
Yeah, Big Nog is just one of those dudes that, like, he's a couple wins and a couple different outcomes away from being in the top 3. He's an absolute legend. I'll never forget him fucking up Bob Sapp's arm after taking the most vicious beating I've ever seen in my entire life.
He literally got power driven right on his head.
Yeah, he got his face smashed in.
Yeah.
Made jiu-jitsu look good, though.
Dude, the guy was run over by a dump truck as a child.
Yeah, and he petted a bus like a horse, according to Charles. You've heard this story, right?
Yes.
Easy there, big fella. Big Nog.
Um,
He's a legend.
yeah, Big Nog, and he's one of the first dudes that were just insanely durable. Like, dude could just take it and keep going. And that's not a guy who you looked at and you're like, how much is that performance enhancing drug? Like, the dude never had a good body. Now, I could be wrong. There's, deceptive people, but that dude doesn't strike me as somebody who is gassing.
And if he did, everybody else was doing it too. It doesn't matter.
Sure. So he beat Mark Coleman, Bob Sapp, Hendo, Crow Cop, Fabricio, Barnett, Sylvia, Couture. I mean, that's a pretty good resume right there. He also lost to Hendo. Lost to Fedor twice, lost to Barnett, lost to Mir twice, lost to Kane, lost to Fabricio.
Man, there's a common name in these lists.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
That these people lose to.
But yeah, Big Nog, great fighter. I think that's a good spot for him. Just, fringe top 5, 100%.
Yep. And then number 5, we came to the conclusion that we wanted it to be Junior Dos Santos, which you had him at number 4. I had him at number 10. Which, looking back, I think that was one of the ones I messed up. Because after you read me his resume, and we kind of looked at it and like, yeah, he's like he could still end up being in the argument for the greatest of all time because his career isn't over.
Sure, he's honestly one of those guys where if a guy named Cain Velasquez didn't exist, would we talk about JDS is a possible go to heavyweight?
I mean, if he goes out there and starts as Francis and then goes on and wins the belt.
You know what I mean? Like,
he knocked out Kane. I mean, he does have a win over Kane.
Yeah, which is, it might be impressive, but Kane came back and just, it took years off his life with the 2 beatings he put on him in the next 2 fights that they had. Yeah. But it's one of those things where I feel like it's because JDS is still relevant. It's tough to really properly rate him. Just because it still feels like, until you actually look at the numbers, you're like, oh, this is how good JDS is. So you're looking at, let's see, JDS is 21-5. He has 15 knockouts and 1 submission. So 16 out of his 21 wins are finishes. Pretty impressive. Okay. So we're looking at, he beat Fabricio, he beat Crow Cop, he beat Carwin, he beat Kane, he beat Hunt and Stipe. Okay. He also lost to Kane twice. He lost to Overeem, lost to Stipe.
See that right there? That's kind of like where I'm like, he beat Stipe, lost Stipe, beat Kane, lost Kane twice. So it's like there's those little gotcha moments. So
now I know that in your list you had Stipe ahead of Kane because obviously you had Stipe ahead of JDS.
Yes. Because he finished him.
Sure. And I almost put Stipe ahead of him on my list because even the first fight, I kind of thought Stipe won the first fight. That was actually the day I graduated college because I remember coming home for my graduation, coming back home and watching that fight. But
you're impossible.
So, you know what I mean? That's a tough one, which gets us to our number 4, which we both agreed on, Stipe. Yeah. You had Stipe at number 2.
Yeah, because if you erase the DC fight, that was already the conversation in the community. But also think about this: when we're talking about all-time greats, talking about precedent set, record-setting, championship winners. He won the championship and he set records. Hard to argue against him.
Sure, and I'm a big Stipe fan. I think he could have done a lot more if he kind of after the DC fight he just didn't wait around. I think to me that's hurting going to be his overall legacy more than we're not going to remember that he sat out, but when we look at his final record, he's not getting younger. If he went on and fought, Francis,
taking a lot of damage.
And he went on or fight, Overeem again or something like that during that time he's been sitting out, then I was so pumped when they rumored John Jones versus Stipe because I was like, dude, that's a good fight. And then I can't even describe how mad I was when they made John Jones versus Thiago Santos.
You texted me. You were pissed.
Furious. So stupid.
That's what it is, man.
But Stipe, you're looking at, let's see, where's Stipe? Okay, he's 18-3, which is pretty impressive.
Jesus Christ, that's really good.
14 knockouts. He beat Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt, Andre Arlovski, Fabricio, Overeem, JDS, Francis. His 3 losses are JDS, DC, and the big one is Stefan Struve. That one was a weird one, but that's a young Stipe, so I'm not gonna sit there and
It's also the heavyweight division.
Sure, stuff happens. Like it was just a weird one. It's kind of a blimp on the radar, not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But if Stipe instead of being 18-3 was like 25-3, with like a few more bigger fights, I'm fine with putting him at that 2 spot. It's tough for me to put him up there just because he didn't do it as long, hasn't so far done it as long as the other guys.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he's finished.
And sure, he's not a finished product.
Yeah. So
I always feel like he's younger than he is. Like he's
Same.
36.
I don't know. I
feel
watch him play video games and watching him maneuver around on video games. I'm like, yeah, he's definitely a little bit older.
Okay, so our number 3, which I would not agree with this. Okay, at number 3 for our list, we have Cain Velasquez. I think Cain's 2, and I think that 90% of people are gonna have Cain 2, but you insisted you wanted Cain at 3, which is fine. The guy that number 2 is, it is what it is. Cain's an absolute monster. What if his career didn't get derailed by injuries?
Or if he had just beat Francis.
Yeah, true.
But like honestly, if he had came back, dominated Francis for 5 rounds, or finished him, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, like sure, number 2. But he didn't.
I wish I had it in front of me. I read something where Donald Cerrone has been in like the UFC like during the same time as Cain, and he's fought like 35 times compared to Cain's like 5.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and like you talked about like longevity of Stipe's career and like body of work or whatever, but I think like that does count too, right? Like he wasn't healthy all those years,
Sure.
So I feel like I can't give him the number 2 spot. And there's a lot of
And
people
I
who
think
didn't
that's
fight.
I completely agree with that because I hate doing the what if. Like I hate going, well, if this person was healthy, we assume he would have won those fights. Well, you can't really assume. So like I'm 100% with you. I hate when people do that, but it's just like the fact that JD, that's the dogs, just barking.
Who let the dogs out? Sorry.
So with that being said, I'm yeah, my wife sucks. But anyway, so with that being said, Cain is fine at 3. You're looking at he's 14-3, 12 knockouts, 2 decisions, no submissions. Beat JDS twice, beat Bigfoot, beat Brock, beat Big Nog. Lost to Francis, Fabricio, JDS are all his losses. The Francis one, you're talking about a guy who hasn't fought in 3 years. The JDS one was a 10-second, 15-second knockout. And then the Fabricio one was also, long layoff, but I feel like that's his biggest loss because that's
good.
kind of, that made me like, again, that's one of the big ones where I remember Fabricio going into that fight was a plus 350 dog. Yeah. And I was like, dude, I'm going Fabricio. He's more active and like, good luck. Cain's bread and butter, wrestling. Yeah, have fun. Have fun with Fabricio on the ground. Good luck.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a number 2. We have Fabricio Verdum, which I think we're both like really like geek out for Fabricio. We're both really big fans. You want to talk about him for a little bit?
Yeah, so he's probably my favorite heavyweight fighter of all time, like strictly heavyweight fighter. It's probably my favorite. So I'm a little bit biased, but honestly, if he doesn't lose to Stipe, he finishes Stipe. Let's say he wins and if he had set the defense record, I would actually give him my number 1 spot.
I would agree with that. Honestly, if he beats Stipe, just beats Stipe, I think I'd give him number 1.
If you look at the who's who, and also a guy that's not afraid of, like, he doesn't protect his career. Like he lost against Volkov or how do you say the gentleman's name? It's Volkov's, right?
Yeah.
Volkov's, yeah. So like he got knocked out by him, but he had stepped in for like 3 different fights, like against people who were not like, who don't deserve the crack at him, don't deserve the clout that comes with fighting Fabricio. Sure. So Fabricio is just like one of those dudes. Like he almost like takes on like a schedule of Andre Arlovski, where like Andre Arlovski fights anyone and everyone, but he doesn't lose usually. He get knocked out, but again, as heavyweight division happens, he's definitely getting really old. And all the USADA stuff, but he tapped Fedor, and Fedor might not have been prime, but Fedor was still really damn good at that time.
That was Fedor's. That was like, I think that's the last time we saw best Fedor. After Fabricio took him down, like we saw a diminished Fedor.
Because Fedor was winning that fight.
Yeah.
Like Fedor was fucking him up, and Verdum's
Sure.
just that good. Verdum's just one of those guys where he's pretty much great everywhere. And if one outcome hadn't went the way it did against Stipe, I think he's probably the greatest of all time.
No, absolutely. And like I said, we're both huge fans. You're looking at, let's see, Fabricio. We're looking at 23-8. He beat Overeem, Bigfoot, Fedor, Nog, Hunt, Kane. Lost to Nog, Arlovsky, JDS, Overeem twice, and Stipe.
And the Overeem losses are weird.
I wish that the kind of stand-up, like when he got with Cordero over in King's MMA, I wish he got with him like 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
Because like the little bit of striking he had, it was kind of like a slightly better Damian Maia type striking, where it was enough. It was enough to get by, to get it where, in his world. So just because like when you watch like him versus Overeem, they were ugly. He's pulling guard like out of nowhere, and like not in like a good way, kind of like in a I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
So those were tough. But I mean, he's one of the few guys can say he has a real true W over Fedor.
Yeah, for sure. He made Fedor look human. So
sure. And like I said, I think that's his first loss in like 10 years that Fedor had. We're not counting doctor stoppage, which was, whatever.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our number one, which is Fedor. Has one of the absolute coolest nicknames of all time. Just dude's awesome. Dude's so stoic. Like for a guy,
a martial
like,
artist.
Just like honestly looked like someone's dad. Looks like someone's Russian dad. Just kind of like, like it's so Russian too. Like when I think of a stereotypical Russian guy, I think of Fedor. Just like can absolutely murder you and kind of just like, whatever. Like I'm here. Not happy to be here, but I'm here.
He's eating potatoes and drinking vodka while holding a boot down on your head. Yeah. Fun.
Like you just see the guy like pushing the car for 8 miles in the snow, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, going to work.
This is life. Yeah, Fedor. When I made this list, I actually was kind of excited because I'm like, dude, I'm not going to put Fedor number one. Everybody always does that, and I was like, he's had some losses. Obviously, back into his career, he's not been the best in the world for all the American fans that saw him, like the casual fans and stuff. And then I started making my list, and we started going down through like kind of what I said earlier, like, oh man, everyone has like a shared loss on this list. And it's Fedor.
Yeah,
and the people who are ranked high have wins over him usually, So for me, that was the common denominator. It's like, well, the one dude that like, Crow Cop couldn't beat or Big Nog couldn't beat was Fedor. And it's kind of weird because I think a lot of people probably wouldn't even put him as number one anymore because of like the back half of his career. But for me, it's a lot like Anderson Silva. You got to look at the whole body of work and you got to weigh it to whenever they were facing the top end talent at the best of their skills. And when they were, or when he was, nobody was stopping him. Nobody. 33 straight wins.
Like you're looking at 38-6, and the dude was so balanced. So he had 14 knockouts, 15 submissions, 9 decisions. Like he was just one of those guys where before, we kind of talked about earlier about specialists. He was one of the few guys who early on in his career could beat you in so many different ways. If you hit the ground, you're in trouble. If you stand up, you're in trouble. If you want to kind of like try to wrestle him, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you're looking at beat Nog twice, beat Mark Coleman twice, beat Hunt, beat Bigfoot, beat Arlovsky, beat Matt Lindland, lost to Fabricio, Bigfoot, and Hendo. Hendo one was weird. And again, like those last two are just kind of, that's not the same Fedor. No. That wasn't the same guy. And now he still lost, but that's not the same guy that,
he has spent the majority of it. Yeah, he spent the majority of his career beating the shit out of everyone. Like
when Crow Cop fought him, it was like, oh, Crow Cop is the baddest man on the planet. He's Crow Cop had the famous line of like, what was it? His left leg will put you in the hospital. The right leg will put you in a body bag.
Yeah, it was right leg hospital, left leg cemetery.
You know what I mean? And it was just like, oh wow. And then who beats him? Fedor.
Yep.
So it's just it is what it is.
The Wars of Big Nog are legendary. I mean,
sure.
He made Pride.
Sure. When
He
you
was
think
bigger
Pride, I
than the
think
UFC.
Fedor.
Yeah, he was bigger than the UFC. Not anymore, but back in the day, it was always like, oh yeah, Randy's champion, but he couldn't beat Fedor.
Yeah, 100%. It was always a large looming shadow.
Yeah, if you talk, even the casual fan, if you said, okay, what about MMA? Oh yeah, UFC and what's that one guy's name? Fedor. That's right, the guy that does push-ups on bricks or whatever the fuck that video was. That's what I remember. So, yeah, it was kind of actually nostalgic to think about Fedor as the all-time GOAT in the heavyweight division, and it kind of surprised me that if you look at everyone's body of work, still, I think you make a very strong argument that he's number one, which is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Um, so I mean that pretty much wraps up our heavyweight list. What we plan on doing in the future is doing these top 10 of each weight class. And when we're not doing that, we're going to kind of break down upcoming cards that just recently happened. So make sure you stay tuned, and if you have any suggestions, let us know. But make sure you subscribe, and leave us any comments you want to. You have anything else, James?
No, I think that's it. If anyone has any good ideas for like top 5 or top 10 lists for something like not weight divisions, I mean, we're gonna do a greatest of all time, but like we could even do moments or scenario,
Knockouts,
yeah, anything like that. Um,
grapplers.
I know without video though, that kind of stuff would probably be meh, but grapplers would be a fun. See, there's tons of stuff. So if you guys have any suggestions, throw it in the comments. Hit subscribe for your boy J Nuts and Brum Dog.
It's your boy.
Your boy back again with another Fortnite exclusive.
All right. Thanks for stopping by.
Yep, we'll catch you next time, partners.